live and a little bit early this morning, but I'm in the parking lot of Target, one of the Targets here in Sacramento. Constance is doing a little shopping. I went in and got myself a Starbucks, and I don't know how long she's going to be in there, but it's going to probably be long enough for me to get a little show in this morning as we're having another day of shopping. Anyway, so good morning. I don't know what national holiday it is today, so it's just going to have to be Happy Wednesday. I speak often about the fact that I'm a Freemason, and I really have great respect and have benefited. I've been personally emotionally, spiritually enriched by my involvement in the craft. My father was a Mason, and so I speak about it so much, and I've written a couple books that, one in particular that focuses on the kind of the magic of Masonry, and but because I talk it up a lot, and I get a lot of emails and messages from men and now women, okay, who are interested in joining their local lodge and looking forward to it. And I always I encourage them to do it, but with the caveat that it's not an esoteric thrills and chills experience, and it's something that you must take from it all that is there to get. But many people don't choose to take from it what is available to get, if that makes any sense to you at all. And that's perfectly all right. Years ago, I was asked to speak at a gathering of esoteric Masons, and I spoke on the subject of death and public speaking and the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I'm looking over to see if Constance is coming out. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you today, but it's almost easier for me to read you certain sections of this, especially those that have the young man that has contacted me lately about Masonry, and the magic of Masonry is in the formula. Indeed, the magic of all initiatory experiences is in the formula of initiation. That's what gets implanted in you. And that, in a sense, is the same truly magical formula, whether the experience is initiation into the Masons or the Golden Dawn or the any number of other initiatory societies that have a degree structured initiatory program. And it can be very innocuous, okay? As long as the formula has been implanted in you, like I say in my book, The Tarot Architect, the path once laid out, okay? The path once laid, the journey is inevitable. And besides all of the rich heritage and the truly mystical symbolism of Masonry that many, perhaps most people involved don't take advantage of the exploration of, they're nevertheless there. And the motto that Masonry makes a good man better, you know, I have to kind of agree with that. Even if you're just a terrible asshole, you're just probably a little bit less of an asshole if you take any part of your Masonic experience serious. But let me read a couple scraps of this, and you might even get a hint of what I was talking about in the title, Ritual Work, Memory Work, and the Fear of Death and Public Speaking. I was raised to the sublime degree of Master Mason in 1998 at the lodge that absorbed the lodge that absorbed the lodge that absorbed the lodge of my father's old lodge in Long Beach, California. I came to Masonry at the age of 50. After spending half of those years enmeshed in the studies and practices and intrigues of esoteric orders whose names and reputations I'm sure many of you are familiar with. I wasn't seeking in Masonry the same sort of esoteric titillation that spices one's initiatory adventures in these other, more secret societies. And this is what I'd like to tell eager occultists wanting to be Masons at first. Don't seek in Masonry the same sort of esoteric titillation that spices your initiatory adventures in other more overtly secret societies. No, I had few naive expectations. I knew from the beginning that I was joining an organization of mostly elderly men, and it was 27 years ago, the co-ed nature and attraction of Masonry to mainstream Masonry was just in its infancy, and I'm proud to say I have many sisters in Masonry now. I knew I was mostly elderly men whom I would have little in common except the bonds of fidelity that for centuries have united the fraternity. Men who, if they really got to know me, would most likely consider my interests too strange, my politics too subversive, my morals too permissive, my books too weird, and my spiritual worldview downright heretical. Men who, for the most part, choose not to delve too deeply into the mysteries that lie in the symbols and ceremonies that they and those that came before them have so dutifully preserved. My expectations were low, and so I wasn't disappointed. I was welcomed into a lodge that at the time, this is 27 years ago, boasted nearly 1,000 members, whose average age was 72, a lodge whose tiny library contained only a handful of books relating to the esoteric foundations of Masonry, none of which, according to the sign-out sheet, had ever been checked out. It didn't really bother me, okay? And it shouldn't bother you either, okay? As a matter of fact, it felt good. For the first time in many years, I was again the youngster in the group. I quickly grew to love and respect my new brothers, and came to the comfortable realization that Masonry was a very big tent. and that if I behaved myself, there was a place in that tent for me. So what if these guys could care less about the Eleusinian mysteries or Sumerian magic or Kabbalah? So what if they said things like, oh, that don't mean anything, it's just symbolic? I was just grateful for the fact that they and generations of others had preserved the craft, and they were now delivering it safely to me across time like a gift from the unknown adepts of antiquity. On the evening that I was raised, I found myself arrogantly wallowing in these narcissistic musings as I sat and listened to a 78-year-old retired naval admiral call me brother and deliver without a single memory lapse the long form of the master's lecture. I was not so much impressed by the words of the lecture as I was the fact that this old salt could rattle them off without a hitch. I then recalled that at all three of my degree ceremonies, all of the officers had delivered their lines and played their parts perfectly. As the old boy continued his monumental lecture, and it's almost 50 minutes long, I drifted, hypnotized on the tedious waves of his monotone delivery, and began to replay in my mind the landmark events of the degree ceremonies. In other words, it was almost hypnotic as he was reminding me, literally step by step, what I had just experienced in the months previous in my first 3 initiations. My eyes darted back and forth to the officers in the east, to the sideliners, even to the secretary up at his desk. They were all moving their lips. I felt like I was in that old Star Trek episode in which the crew found themselves on a planet where everybody was of the body. Are you here for festival, yeah? Are you of the Landru, blessings of Landru? If you haven't seen that Star Trek, you should. Okay. I realized that at that moment that most of these old coots knew the lecture by heart and could probably give it back in their sleep. In their sleep, I thought. I then had a Masonic epiphany. Okay, I'm going to skip over a bunch of things there. I titled the talk, Ritual Work, Memory Work, and the Fear of Death in Public Speaking. I know that sounds a little goofy, but it really isn't. We're told, in fact, that death is an important study for meditation, study and meditation for Masons. And a survey, or surveys, show that many people fear something even more than death: public speaking. This would suggest, at least on a subjective level, that people who overcome the fear of public speaking have a leg up on also overcoming the fear of death. Masonry requires of each of her initiates to overcome the dread fear of public speaking, especially if you want to take an active role in the craft. As ritual officers, we're required to deliver our lines before a knowledgeable and ruthless audience. men who grimace and shake their heads in exaggerated disappointment each time we flub a word or forget a section. Even if we never choose to be a ritual officer, we're still required, before we're allowed to pass to the next degree, to give back in front of the assembled brethren the carefully memorized words, steps, signs, and tokens of our degree proficiencies, in our degree proficiencies. The only escape from this terror is to be letter perfect and proud of it. And oh, doesn't it feel good when it's over? And you know, perhaps death is like that. It feels so good when it's over. Now, I'm not expecting anyone to believe that pulling a tour of duty with Toastmasters International is the secret to immortality. However, I am suggesting that such training can have profound effect upon a person's self-image and ability to project and behave proactively in strange and sometimes uncomfortable environments. Carrying that a step further, we may speculate that the strangest and most uncomfortable environment imaginable is the death coma itself. And who seem to be obsessed with death and the afterlife journey more than the Egyptians? Now, I confess I've never been to Egypt, never spent a night in the king's chamber, never gazed upon the Sphinx, okay? But I spent most of my life in Southern California, with its warm climate and palm-lined trees and lilies of the Nile and pampas grass. It's easy to daydream a shirtless, shoeless life of an Egyptian artisan or scribe or priest. Since I was a child, I've often mused that in a previous incarnation, I lived upon the Nile or served the gods in some great temple. Perhaps my mummy still lies undisturbed in some undiscovered necropolis, or has been pulverized by 19th century European imperialists and sold as a miracle laxative. I think that was MacGregor Mather's first job at the Ornament Museum. I'm teasing. Why are we as Masons so fascinated with the Egyptians? After all, there's no shortage of ancient civilizations to ponder. What's wrong with the Hittites? The Babylonians, the Minoans, didn't they also build great cities and monuments? Didn't their armies also conquer their neighbors? Didn't their religions also spread with commerce and the sword? Why have so many of us who may otherwise exhibit no inclination to study ancient civilizations become enamored with the mysteries of Egypt? The answer, in my opinion, is one word: magic. Egypt certainly didn't corner the market on magic. It permeated nearly every aspect of life in all the cultures of the ancient world. We know a great deal about the magical practices of the Babylonians. We know what gods they invoked for victory and love and battle, and what demons to evoke to torment their enemies. These are practical skills for practical people. And from what we know about the Egyptians, they too were a practical people. But apart from a rich pantheon of deities, local and state, and obligatory domestic superstitions, Egyptian magic appears to have been dominated by their funeral industry. Perhaps this is a distorted perception of the truth, because so much of what we know about the Egyptians we've learned by examining the contents of their tombs. We'll probably never know the details of many daily activities of Egyptian life, simply because the remnants of that life have not been so heroically preserved. We owe a great deal to the mummy mills. After all, what other magical art form sets out to preserve its handiwork for eternity? Mystery schools disappear, sometimes overnight. Books and manuscripts turn to dust. Sacred languages die. Religions and whole civilizations perish without a trace. But a first-class Egyptian funeral is forever. And we often hear that forever is a long time. But nothing could be further from the truth. Time is nothing to forever. The Egyptian magicians who established and perpetuated the elaborate procedures for the dead did so not to impress or enlighten the curious minds of the future. They didn't put mummies on ice to await some cosmic awakening in the future. For them, the afterlife is a continuous now, just like life. And the age-old search for eternal life is really the quest to attain the consciousness of the continuity of existence. Immortality is the prize for they who would achieve this state of consciousness. From this enlightened vantage point, one no longer counts the string of spiraling incarnations as separate or even sequential episodes of experience. Rather, they're perceived as projected concurrently. One wall-to-wall enactment of a single master adventure with specific and recognizable characters, ordeals, crisis points. These crises are initiations, and the cast of recurring characters who populate this personal epic are our initiating officers. And then I bring up, I remind people of the movie, Bill Murray's movie, Groundhog Day, and how once he catches on, every day he improves himself and moves toward perfection at the end. And here I talk about difference between religion and initiation, and the importance of the absorbing the momentum, the rhythm of the initiatory formula. The formula of initiation is universal, and Masonry certainly hasn't cornered the market on it. It matters little what specific mystery is revealed in the graduated steps of any particular initiatory society. Properly experienced, a degree of illumination can potentially be achieved even in the most innocuous rite. Scholars, soldiers, sailors, physicians, printers, blacksmiths, even thieves and hangmen have historically enjoyed the benefits and privileges of fraternal orders. And remnants survive all over the place from prehistoric times even. Okay, what do I want to get to here finally? But what about the Egyptians? And by the way, by means of the Masonic experience, if the Egyptian formula is ours. But what about the Egyptian initiation ceremonies? Do we know with any degree of accuracy what they were like? Is Masonry truly the inheritor of the Egyptian mysteries? I think the only honest answer is nobody knows. Okay. There are those who claim to have combed the astral records to eavesdrop on the moment when Plato or Pythagoras or Homer or Jesus were raised to spiritual perfection within the Great Pyramid. Great modern occultists, including Eliphas Levi, Aleister Crowley, and Manly Hall, have thrilled us with imaginative and colorful tales of the ancient initiate's journey. But no archaeologist has yet unearthed the first edition of Duncan's complete unabridged Egyptian initiatories manual and monitor. He explained with it and interpreted with copious notes and numerous engravings. Or have they? And the next section is the Egyptian Book of the Dead and lucid dreaming. Now, I don't know how much time we're going to be able to continue with this, but the lucid dreaming, the memory work, and the fear of public speaking all come together to help me at least speculate on the formula of overcoming death. Stuck between the legs of every well-dressed Egyptian mummy is a magical text written so tradition would have us by the god Thoth himself. Memorized to perfection in life, it enabled the recently deceased to negotiate, step by step, the ordeals and confusion of post-mortem existence, and become absorbed, as it were, fully identified with the immortal deity. The text is known to us as the Book of the Dead. While unquestionably the scriptural centerpiece of an elaborately complex religious institution, it is, in my opinion, the fundamental handbook of initiation. And then I go on to point out, step by step, a procedure that it was obvious that the deceased to be memorized and reenacted over and over and over again as they pass from pylon to pylon. In other words, passing from higher, more subtle, higher, more subtle, higher, more subtle levels of consciousness as they systematically cast off the physical body, the mental body, and the real them finally goes through the last pylon after they've gotten rid of their bodies, their physical body, their mental bodies, their psychic bodies, their emotional bodies, and each little ordeal, at each little door they pass through. And if they concentrate in their minds this scenario, their mind, they inhabit their mind, the mind that is transcendent of the meat brain. And so they go someplace consciously with full intent, go someplace, go to the glorified Osiris, merge with Godhead. It's quite a formula. Anyway, that's it for this morning. Constance is still in Target. I hope she finds what she's looking for. Now, tomorrow, okay, I have to get up very early because I have a European interview, okay, a live interview, and so that is at 7 a.m. tomorrow. So I'll get up around 5, but that shouldn't get in the way of our show tomorrow. But if I look a little tired tomorrow, please forgive me. Anyway, that's it for today. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other, and don't be afraid of public speaking. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under well.